In this video, we're diving into the root causes of sexless marriages.
And we'll give you 3 things that men can do to transform your relationship and have more and better sex with your partner.
Hi, I'm Emily Liu.
And I'm Jim Griffith.
And we help couples and singles over 40 to achieve the one thing that really matters, and that is intimate connection and
great
the great sex that comes along with that intimate connection. So you'll want to watch until the end of the video because we're going to be sharing a true story of a couple we work with where they were in a sexless marriage and how we got them unstuck so that intimacy started to happen again.
Okay, so what do we mean by a sexless marriage? Well, we're defining a sexless marriage here as having sex less than once a month, and that's a generally accepted definition. The average couple reports having sex about once a week by comparison, and guys report wanting to have sex several times a week. So that'll give you a sense of what we mean when we talk about sexless marriage. And we see the impact of sexless marriage reflected in both the divorce rate in the United States, which is extraordinary, and also in the number of couples who report being in a sexless marriage, which, believe it or not, is 28 million couples.
That's a pretty big statistic of a lot of men suffering and wanting more sex. So what are the most common causes of sexless marriages? The first one is the mental health issues and physiological and hormonal issues, which are problems that should be addressed with a medical doctor.
Right.
And then there's...
The second one is everything else. And in this video, we're really going to focus on the everything else. Our underlying assumption here is that a sexless marriage is really a symptom of a deeper problem. And the deeper problem is expressed in so many different ways in a sexless marriage, but it all sort of boils down to one thing.
And that is the lack of intimate connection, intimate emotional connection. As a woman, speaking from the woman's point of view, and I know that most women share this view, is that if we don't feel safe to express all that we are, all the parts of who we are, including our wild emotions, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and if we don't feel safe to be that feminine flower and goddess, then that lack of safety shuts our body down. Beyond the initial dating phase where we wanted to see what the sex was like and what that connection's all about, once you move past that and you're in a long-term relationship, it's not about the carnal per se anymore. It's really about how safe does he make me feel.
So this is really an important point that we're making here. You can enter this subject in any number of ways, but behind all of the things that you're struggling with is going to be the same issue: the lack of deep, intimate, emotional connection.
Yeah, and you were not taught as a man of how to hold space for a woman so that you can develop the deep, intimate connection. And women are not taught how to ask for that from their man. So none of us are taught these relationship 101 skills. So it's no wonder that many long-term marriages end up in sexless marriages.
Exactly.
So you're not alone, and it's not your fault that you don't know this.
So here are some thoughts for you to consider to determine whether an intimate connection is a problem that you're struggling with. The first is, can you talk about sex?
At breakfast.
At breakfast or any time when you have some privacy, of course. The second is, are you able to navigate those emotional triggers that come up inevitably in every relationship?
Mismatched libidos, that's another one. And also too many frustrations and resentments swept under the rug.
Right. Maybe you feel emasculated, which is you don't feel like you get to wear the pants in the relationship. Or maybe you're feeling every time you initiate sex, you're being rejected.
Many women also feel exhausted and feeling resentful that she has to do everything around the house.
We hear a lot of guys approaching this as sort of a goal-oriented athletic event where, if you don't score an orgasm or a particular position, it's, not successful. And the other one is playfulness. And playfulness is a perfect example of being free and safe, to be, have that childlike feeling of being playful in the bedroom. That's a safety thing, that's a comfort thing. That's a relaxed thing.
Then there's the lack of skill. A lot of men just think that pushing certain buttons and just going from A to B to C is what's going to be successful in producing orgasm. And if a woman is feeling like you're just going around the bases and not being present with her, she's going to say well, I don't want to have sex again.
And the male version of that is really just not feeling confident in the bedroom. And we're surprised how often we see this in the couples that we're coaching, is men who really never learned how to make love to a woman, really don't understand how to touch a woman. It's something as simple as that. And there's a lot that we can talk about that, but that's one of the indicators that we find. If the man doesn't feel competent, that's part of a deeper intimacy issue.
And if your relationship is mostly about information sharing and the logistical things you have to get done around the house, and that's the bulk of your conversations, then there isn't any intimate connection for her to want to feel closer through sex.
Right, that's more of a partnership than a romantic partnership. The last couple of things are related to fear and shame and trust. So shame comes into the bedroom all the time, whether it's shame about our own body image and confidence with being naked with our partner, or fear. Fear comes in often with, from a male perspective, performance anxiety, right? Am I going to be able to achieve erection? Am I going to be able to give her the pleasure that I would love to give her? And all the expectations that are in our brains around that.
And by the way, Jim and I made a video about how ED is really not an issue in terms of building intimate connection in an interview we did with
Second
Silke.
Act TV, yeah, Silke from Second Act TV. She's
so
wonderful.
The link to that video is in the description box.
Right. So let's talk about trust, is the last thing we just wanted to touch on here, as another example of something that might be an indication that you have a deeper intimacy issue in your relationship. If either of you have had past indiscretions in either this relationship, or you've had mistakes that you've made in prior relationships, or maybe you have substance abuse, alcohol, or other addictions in your history,
Affairs,
all of these things, all of these things, affairs, you're right, infidelity, all of these things end up becoming sources of fear, and that fear leads to a lack of trust that somehow they're going to enter the relationship again.
So now for the true story of a couple we're working with who was in a sexless marriage for a long time. So they came to us as a very loving couple who loved each other deeply, but they cannot get unstuck from the woman feeling unsafe to open her body to sex.
Right.
And all he wanted was sex.
And she had had years and years of therapy that helped her get to the point where she is so aware of her own issues, but still she was not able to break through in terms of this deeper intimacy that they both really wanted to achieve. And from his point of view, it was about her being broken, that she was damaged goods because she actually had some real trauma in her past. And he was kind of hiding behind that as a part of how he approached and rationalized what was going on in their marriage.
And as we worked with them and the trust was built, he began to realize that he also had a protective mechanism of not being able to love deeply, the fear of loving deeply.
Yeah, we see this all the time, actually, and it's surprising how often we run into it. It's when one or both of the couple are in this mindset that they're maybe undeserving of love. It's too scary to love because they've been burnt before. These things are deep issues that show up in so many different ways. They close down the relationship in the bedroom rather than opening it up.
So one of the things we did was to try to figure out in their body what are the blockages to intimacy. In order to create the safety, we had them do a simple exercise of reconnecting with one another, soul to soul, heart to heart. And we began with suggesting just touching her forearm. Let's demonstrate.
Oh, allow me. So we asked them to do this without demonstrating like we're about to do first. And what we saw was that the man approached the woman like, he was testing grapefruit. We asked her how that felt, and she felt feels like I'm like a piece of meat, right? And then we demonstrated this approach and asked them to do this, and asked her for feedback. So I'll demonstrate the approach and then tell you what happened. So we basically said, all right, let's imagine that you are a feather or a butterfly, and you're floating just above her skin, barely touching her, moving at a snail's pace, so she can almost not feel it.
And touch her with your heart.
Right.
Just
So
send the loving energy from your heart.
the speed, the level of pressure, but most importantly, the sort of the emotional content of your touch. Communicate to her how much you love her through the very tips of your fingers. And that's all you have, is the tips of your fingers to tell her how much you love her. How would you do that? And explore her erogenous zones along the way, right? So there's an erogenous zone right here in the crook of her elbow. There's another one right here just underneath her palm. Her palm itself is another one. So we basically walked them through this, and then we had them do it again.
Here's what happened. The feedback initially was that she said that she did not feel his heart, that this was a mechanical process. And we uncovered that there was a protector within him, and the engineering part of him that is trying to analyze, am I doing this right? And that heart, it was hard to feel through his heart to convey that love, because there's a part of him that is afraid to love deeply based on what happened to him as a kid and also in his previous relationships. So this is where, through this exercise, we uncover the deep inner work that needs to be done. So we had him externalize or unblend from that engineering part of him, which he saw it as, ooh, this is the blockage on the bridge to love. And then we did the deep work around that, because that part was afraid of deep love based on incidences in childhood and previous relationship.
So as we got into this exercise, and this was the interesting thing, is that he really was not sure about doing this at all. He was a little bit frightened about what was about to happen. And then once he saw how simple it was, he felt safe in order to try it. What Emily's talking about was really an important point of the exercise, which is that not only understanding that there's a way to touch a woman, there's a learning right there in that sense. The whole idea that this is an expression of your heart, and that as you try to do these things, we can uncover what's really going on inside you. We can coach you in a way that asks the right questions. We can figure out, oh, well, there's something going on that we really need to dive into a little bit deeper. So this was a simple entryway into a full sort of coaching session about what's really going on more deeply inside him, and what was it that was preventing him from being able to touch her with his heart.
Yeah, and so we told her that it was her leadership that was going to help him to move beyond the arm, and she had to give him feedback about how it felt for her. And then we taught him how to ask her questions. Should I do this harder or softer?
Right, exactly.
Faster, slower? How is this feeling? He had never had the experience of asking a woman, how are you feeling with how I'm touching you?
Right.
Because men, a lot of times, are thinking to themselves, I should know this. I should just figure this out by myself. Okay, I watched this on in that
I'm
porn
guilty of this too.
video, and let me see if I try that technique.
Right.
And the simple act
I expect
of just,
myself to know. I should know how to do this, right?
Exactly.
How? I mean, how are we ever taught how to do this?
Right,
So
and I
it's,
have
it's
other-
perfectly reasonable that we don't actually know how to do this.
Yeah. I realized that men, wow, so many of them think that they should know this all by themselves. And from my male friendships and the close conversations I have with these guys as they navigate dating and relationships, I think just about all of them have said to me, I should know this. I should figure it out. I shouldn't have to ask.
Right, exactly. Well, guess what? It really helps to ask, and there's a lot of help out there. And what we did with this particular couple was a doorway into an exercise that really helped us understand what was going on inside the guy's head. What wounds from childhood he was bringing into this very moment that needed to be addressed and healed in order for him to be safe touching her as though he were giving her his heart.
Yeah. So we did the work right there with that engineering part of him that wanted to just touch her through, like, okay, let me touch this way, and
It's like pushing
with this
buttons on the microwave.
and so as she witnessed where this came from, she just broke out in tears because she had so much empathy and compassion for how scared he is to say that he doesn't know.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
that made it more playful.
It was a major breakthrough. I mean, it's a simple exercise, but it produced, a line of inquiry where we were talking to him about what's really happening inside him, and that what came from that is a much deeper understanding on her part of why he is the way he is, and why he touches her the way he touches her, and at the same time, from his standpoint, it was a light bulb moment to say, oh, so if I do this, then maybe she'll give me permission to touch her here. And then if I have permission to touch her here, maybe I can move on from there. And it opened up a vision for him of the whole world of making love to her that
The
he
roadmap.
really didn't have,
Yeah.
right? He was like trying to figure out, as an engineer, just like me, he was trying to figure out, okay, where is this going? And then all of a sudden it hit him. It's like,
This is the roadmap to sex.
this is how we do it. This is how I make her feel safe. I touch her in a loving way. I ask for feedback. She gives me feedback. I change the way I'm doing it. And then I ask for permission. To do the next thing, whatever that might be. And this whole sequence was like, aha, I got it.
This is how we do it.
Yeah. And they were so excited at the end of this, all of us really. It was a very emotional thing, but they were so excited to go off and really try this for real in their intimate relationship.
Yeah, so that's the story we just wanted to share about the little steps you can take to get back into intimacy and safety and feeling connected. So that vulnerability of revealing, oh, I do have a part that feels like I should know it all. And for especially the woman to be like, oh, it's okay, honey. That already produces a closer connection.
Yeah.
And so imagine if that happened in your relationship.
Yeah, she later described this experience that we witnessed as them learning how to make love, literally right in front of us, even though they were just doing the
touching
arm
the
touch.
arm. Yeah.
She felt like this was a major breakthrough for them, and those are the kinds of things that we are just thrilled to have the privilege to work with couples on.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you understand that deeper intimacy is the doorway to greater sex. So we're going to talk to you now about 3 steps to greater intimacy. And since sexless marriage is just a symptom of deeper intimacy, when we think about sex, for guys, it's really very simple, right? Guys want consistent sex, and it's as straightforward as that.
And women want consistent, intimate conversation. Yes, if you want the sex, we need the intimate conversation so that our bodies want to open up to give you the sex, because we feel close through intimate conversation. When we feel close to you emotionally, we will naturally want to have more sex. That's the main message here, deeper connection.
Yeah, so this is really the key that unlocks the door, guys. It's as simple as this. If we can get to deeper connection, we can get to a comfort level that she feels ready to open up to us, emotionally and physically, literally.
So here are the 3 steps that need to be taken in order for you to get more sex. Number 1 is understand her needs and your needs. And understanding her needs means that you need to understand she needs intimate conversation and feeling emotionally safe to reveal all that she is in order for her to want to make love.
Right, so there's a couple of ways that we approach this. Understanding your needs is the first step, and understanding your needs means going through a needs inventory, which we'll have a worksheet for you here in the notes. Going through a needs inventory and really understanding what you're looking for. To what degree are you expecting her to help you meet this need, and how well is she doing at that part of what you're hoping to have her do? Then the second step is for you to complete the same exercise, but do it from her point of view. In other words, what do you think are her needs, and what does she expect from you in terms of helping to meet them, and how are you doing in helping her meet her needs? And we expect that if you can do this and then have her do the same exercise and compare notes, that this is going to lead to a great conversation between the two of you. You're going to understand gaps, you're going to identify misunderstandings, and you're going to see sort of mismatches in terms of what you think is on her list of important things, how you're doing against those versus how she might see the same thing.
So your top needs aren't even aligning. we need to give each other what is important to the other person so that both people can get their needs met and have a
yeah.
fulfilling sex life.
Exactly. So that's what relationship is about, right? We're really in this to help meet our own needs, but also to help give ourselves to another and to meet her needs, in my case. So important point. Number one, understand his needs and her needs. That's the first step. And inevitably, this is going to highlight areas where each of you might need to do some internal work. And as coaches, this is really the part of the process where we can really be helpful. So that brings us to step 2, do the internal work. Most of us go through life without even understanding that many of our actions and attitudes are determined by what's happened to us in our past.
What happened to you as a child informs a lot of how you show up in your relationship. So if you want to know what this internal work involves so that you guys can both feel safe to share all parts of you, it really involves going deeply back into the past.
Right.
And understanding why you're triggered by certain things. Like I get triggered when his energy goes up and I feel a tension
When I raise
and
my
anger.
voice.
When he raises his voice,
Then I don't even
get
realize
scared.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
And it's all because of what I witnessed in childhood of my father raising his voice towards my mother. So I tell him I get scared, I shut down.
And it has nothing to do with her. It's just me getting frustrated with myself. But I've become more and more aware of when I'm doing this because it becomes a trigger for her.
So then, when it happens, I just let him know that it didn't feel safe.
So doing the internal work is really about building a foundation of understanding of what's going on inside your own head in order for you to approach the same kind of conversation, a working conversation as a couple. So this foundational piece is something that's really important in terms of understanding how to approach the next level.
And the Internal Family Systems Evidence-based Healing Model developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz is an extremely powerful model,
So
not
this
only
is the one
for
we
own
use, right? Yeah.
personal healing,
Yeah.
but also this is what we use with clients. And that's what we did with that story that we just told you of how doing this exercise revealed a part that was blocking intimacy. So if you want to learn more about internal family systems, we're going to link a video of a presentation I have regarding what is internal family systems and how do these different parts of us show up in relationship conflicts. And then if you're someone who is a reader that wants to go deeper, you can always read my book, CLIMAX, Why Great Leaders Need Love Affairs. This is a fictional love story that will teach you how the parts within you show up in relationship challenges and what you have to do in order to heal them and transcend it to build deeper intimacy and connection.
So building this internal understanding is a foundational piece of work that we can coach you through that will help you get to a point where you really have the opportunity now to build a new kind of relationship with your wife and get to the kind of sex that you've only been able to dream up to this point. So this brings us to step number 3, which is get vulnerable. And by that we mean as you've built the internal understanding, you're ready to have the conversations with your partner, the deep, vulnerable, intimate conversations with your partner that are going to open things up for you as a couple and really transform your relationship.
Yeah, just like we shared in the story of doing the couples work, that was the doorway through which this couple started to feel safe with getting physical with each other again. Because we had to identify the internal blockages and the stories they were telling themselves that were stopping them from feeling emotionally safe to be with each other again. They knew they loved each other very, very much, but they were just stuck.
Right.
So this is why it's really important to do not only the individual work, but the couples work.
Right.
I wish, I could say, like, no, just follow these 3 steps and you could do this on your own. The reality is,
This
if
is
it were
hard
so
work.
easy.
This is really hard
Yeah.
work, and it really helps to have a guide. So one of the things about me in my past is I've been through this IFS therapy for myself as an individual and have done a lot of the internal work that we were just talking about in step 2. I could never have gotten through that on my own. I can see how much value my therapist, in this case, an IFS trained therapist, how much value she provided in that process as I worked through these things internally. She would guide me at every step of the way, and that's exactly how we approach this with our clients.
Yeah, and because he is so knowledgeable in this area of parts and knowing his own parts meant that he had compassion for my parts. So I'm trained in this IFS healing modality, and I've been through IFS therapy. So we speak the same language. When we started dating, that was like a main connection point we had.
Right.
So immediately he was able to like hold space for my triggers, because he knew like, what does this part need from me right now to feel safe? And so when you do the work, when both of you do the work, you will have a common language through which to name the triggers and talk through each other's triggers. And in those moments of talking through the triggers, this is when you build the closeness. And especially for the woman you want to have great sex with, when she feels heard, and when she feels like you're that rock solid man who can protect her emotionally and provide the love and the safety she needs for all of the little girl parts inside of her that were wounded, this is where she feels really close to open up her body to you.
Right. So getting there is hard work, and as we've said, and it's something that we encourage you to really approach in a very thoughtful way. And we think that this internal family systems approach is absolutely the right approach to take. And whether you try to do that on your own, which you're welcome to do, or you work with coaches like us or a therapist, that is the core part of both step number 2 and step number 3, is understanding that internal work, and then in step 3, really applying that as a couple, developing that language, that communication habit together as you develop and transform your relationship into something completely new and completely exciting, honestly.
So if you want to get started on learning about IFS, you can watch the videos that are linked below that talk about what IFS is. You could read my CLIMAX book so that you could understand this whole framework, and you're going to get a lot of ahas from reading this story. You could read in the Amazon reviews how people have gotten so much out of the book.
Okay, so to cover what we've talked about today, there's a bunch of points that we want to wrap up with here. First of all, you are not alone. If you're in a sexless marriage or you're struggling with sex in your relationship, there are 28 million couples out there like you that are having the same kinds of struggles. So it's important to understand this is not something that's unique to you, and there is a lot that you can do to change the situation. The second point is that if it's a sexless marriage, that's likely a symptom of a lack of the kind of intimacy, of deeper emotional intimacy with your partner that's required to really transform your relationship into the kind of intimacy and great sex that you're looking for. This is particularly the case as we get older, for couples in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. It's no longer a hormone-driven thing. It really is a different kind of seduction and a different kind of relationship now. So we've proposed to you here 3 steps. The first is understanding your needs and her needs, and being able to come together to begin the conversation about what's really going on between you in your relationship and what you would like to see in your relationship. So that's step 1.
And then step 2 is about doing the internal work of understanding yourself so that you can better understand her. Once you understand yourself and how you have all these parts within you, you're going to understand that she has different parts too that have needs that need to be met before she opens her body up to you.
And then once you lay that foundation of internal understanding, you're ready for step 3, which is really to do the hard couples work. And this involves getting vulnerable and having those difficult conversations about topics that you don't usually talk about. This will make all the difference in your relationship. It will bring you together in ways that we have seen couples come together and open up completely new possibilities in terms of what's possible for them just in general in their relationship, their overall happiness, and specifically what's possible in the bedroom. So we have a number of resources that we want to offer. The first is our own website, which is intimacyandgreatsex.com. There's a number of things there that I think you'll find useful. There's also a hilarious video about IFS if you're interested in learning more about parts and the higher self and the whole IFS healing model. And then there is, of course, the CLIMAX book, which Emily has authored. That's her second book. CLIMAX, Why
Great Leaders Need Love Affairs.
Why great leaders need love affairs.
Love affairs with themselves, doing the work on the inner parts.
Right. It's
The
it
self-love.
really is a great read, and it's told in such it's told as a fable, so it's told in such an approachable way that we can all see ourselves in this. And then we'll offer some additional resources in the discussion section in the notes, links out to other tools that we think you might find useful, including the needs inventory that we talked about earlier.
If you want to reach out to us, our information is in the description box. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. And please comment below if any of this resonated with you, and let's get a conversation going.
We really love the comments that we've received on our videos so far, and really appreciate those. We love to respond and interact with you, so definitely encourage you to comment and subscribe.
See you in the next video.
All right, bye-bye.